In this episode, Introduction to the Kingdom of Eden, understanding the context of Genesis Part 3, the beginning in judgment. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We've come to understand that this is a reference, the heavens and the earth, to the covenant and the covenantal people. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. Well, why was the earth unformed? Why was it without form? Why wasn't it built up? And why was it unfilled? Why was it empty? Why was it void? And darkness, why was it over the face of the deep? Well, when we take a look into Jeremiah 4, we get a very direct comparison with the same language being used. However, this goes into much greater detail of the environment surrounding the word usage. Jeremiah 4, declare in Judah and proclaim in Jerusalem, blow the trumpet through the land, for I bring disaster and great destruction. A destroyer of nations has set out to make your land a waste. Your cities will be ruins without inhabitant, to be made void, to be made unfilled. Warn the nations that he is coming, and announce to Jerusalem, besiegers come from a distant land. They shout against the cities of Judah. She has rebelled against me. She, for her ways and her deeds, have brought this upon her. For God's people are foolish and know him not. They are stupid children. They have no understanding. They are wise in doing evil. But how to do good they know not. And this is the description of this coming judgment for their foolishness, for their ability to do evil. For their deeds have brought this upon them. For their land is going to be taken from them. It will be made void and unfilled. And we get the description in Jeremiah 4:23 saying, I looked, and behold, the earth was without form and void, and the heavens had no light. There was no man, and the fruitful land was a disaster. And this state is referred to as the whole land shall be a desolation. And for this the earth shall mourn, and the heavens above be dark. That's an exact description that we get in Genesis 1, that the earth was without form and void, and darkness over the face of the deep, for there was no man yet. When we continue into Genesis 6, we get a very, very similar incident also taking place in the judgment coming with Noah. For we read in Genesis 6 that the earth, the covenant people, had become corrupted in God's sight, for the earth was filled with violence. And God saw that the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh upon the earth had corrupted their ways. And God said to Noah, I have made a judgment. I have determined to make an end of all the flesh, for the earth is filled, the opposite of void. The earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. So here we have a destruction of all flesh with the earth. We have this judgment on earth. And it says specifically in Genesis 6, continuing in verse 17, behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven, a direct reference to the creation of Adam, which is interesting because we have under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die. So here we have God determining that which is under the authority of covenant, that which is the breath of life under heaven, and we have a declaration to make it void. Everything that is on the earth shall die. So the entirety of the covenantal people shall die. And we follow it up immediately with, but I will establish my covenant with you. So here we have a direct verbiage where God tells Abraham, I am going to end this covenant people with a flood water, but I will reestablish my covenant with you on the other side. And when we read it, we actually get this interesting covenant of the ark in Genesis 7 through and leading up to the Ark of the Covenant with Moses. Pretty interesting. But anyway, let's continue into Genesis 7 where we read about this flood. So God said, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth. Genesis 7:17. The flood was on the earth, and the waters increased and bore up the ark and rose it high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. Well, when we listen to Genesis 1, what is above the earth? Well, that's the heavens. And here we have God protecting Moses, or Noah rather, in the ark, which was rose above the earth, which would be the heavens. And the ark floated on the face of the waters, which is interesting because in Genesis 1, the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And here we have Noah with over the waters, with the Spirit over the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains and the whole of heaven were covered, under the whole of heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains. Everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground. Man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, they were blotted out from the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then came Genesis 1:9, saying, Now let the waters under the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear. God called that dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called the seas. So in Genesis 8, when we read the exact same thing taking place, God remembered Noah in the ark, and God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed, and rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. So here we have the waters under the heavens being gathered into one place to let dry land appear, to let the earth appear. Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made and sent forth a raven, and it went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. A raven over the waters while the waters were still not yet dried up. Very interesting image, because we get in the Song of Solomon a reference to the raven being black. We also get the reference in Deuteronomy that the raven is not a clean animal. So we get this black, unclean animal flying over the waters. So we have darkness over the waters. Very interesting stuff here, for we know that the reference to the waters also includes those outside a covenant, which is referred to in the unclean. What we see followed up with that is equally interesting, as then he sent forth a dove to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to put her foot, so she returned to the ark, for the waters were still on the whole earth. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark, and the dove came back to him, and in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided. Well, that's a very interesting story, because when we compare that black raven, the unclean black raven, versus the dove, we get this interesting correlation referred to in Matthew 3. For when Jesus was baptized, immediately he went up from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened to him, and the Spirit of God descended upon him like a dove. Very interesting. For it goes on to say in 1 Peter, making reference to this, said that the patience of God kept waiting in the days of Noah, so that 8 persons were brought safely through the water. Corresponding to that, baptism now saves you, not the removal of dirt from the flesh, but an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So here we see that Noah went through a cleansing, that the waters that came upon them, the flood, has been seen as a prophetic image, just as we see with Jesus' baptism, into the things of God and a declaration of your faith in him. In 1 Corinthians, we see this also explained by Paul when he said, and we're all and this is referring to the children of Israel, who were all baptized into Moses in the cloud in the sea. Just like Genesis 1, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the sea. We have the sea there with the baptism in Genesis 1, just as we have with the baptism over Noah and the judgment, and the same language we see there. Just as Jesus was symbolized with the same exact symbols and issues, which comes true to the John 3:5 saying, unless one is born of the water and the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That's also then included into the baptism of Eden in Genesis 1. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then the judgment, salvation, and restitution took place, in that the waters under the heavens were gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear, the earth, the salvation, the land of God, where God would be present, the restitutions, as the waters were gathered, letting the dry land appear, that earth would be established apart from the seas. And the covenant people once again reestablished, and light has been brought into the world so that man could appear. And just as we see with Genesis 8, the same judgment, salvation, and restitution. So just as it says, the waters that were under the heavens were gathered into one place to let the dry land appear, God called that dry land earth, and that's where he created his covenant people. Just as in Genesis 8, the waters were dried off the earth, and the face of the ground was dry. The earth had dried out. So God said, go out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons and your daughters, everything that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they swarm on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply. So here we have God pulling all the waters off, creating and revealing the dry land again, the earth, and then he repopulates it. Just as what happened with the establishment of Eden, and we see the parallel language. This one, of course, isn't the waters, because it was the earth which was judged, and let the waters swarm with the same language, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the be fruitful and multiply on the earth. Exactly the same language of judgment, salvation, and restitution in Eden, and likewise in Noah.